Okay, devs, you guys should be able to move up yourselves. I don't know exactly how this works, so.
Just right click on it and press become a speaker.
There you go.
Ah, there we go.
See? Easy peasy.
Let's see who else.
Allow requests from everyone. How do I?
So. Okay. So I see how I can call people up. Okay. So if someone doesn't know what's going on. All right. So guys, if you want to just use, so the Q&A questions, if you want to put an official question in there, that's fine. But if you don't want to just chat, if you could use the voice chat channel instead, that would be appreciated.
It's right below the Q&A questions.
We are just waiting for a couple more people. Carmaine will be on. He's finishing a Rainbow Siege game.
Rainbow Siege.
Yeah, he has his priorities in check, apparently.
Yeah.
Bro, he's in social life. That's pretty based.
And we actually have a couple people from Kaiserreich in the audience, which is cool. Shout out to Alpha Dog and Magamagal.
AUS Girl as well.
Oh yeah, AUS Girl as well.
Rams here as well.
Yeah, we actually have a couple. Ugly Dog, what's up?
Allowed? Yeah, I am.
Globus as well. Good to see you.
Hey, Carmen.
Oh, there he is.
And he can. He's the owner of the server, so he can come up here himself. Oh, he's already here. Okay.
There's the guy.
I have the power just to press yes. I want to do this.
Yeah, no, we have to right click.
Oh, yes, there's people here. Oh god.
All right, so Duodex will be on in a few minutes. So we've got some people who might be a little late, but we've got some questions that we can just get started with. It's now 3 EST. Sorry about the time zone confusion, by the way. I did not realize before I made the announcement that GMT and British Summertime are different. So
No, that's fine. I only took the piss. I took the piss out of that. I wasn't actually saying that was a problem. I just said, yes, I need to convert that.
Oh no, Carmen is
Honestly, I never know which one we're on.
I was angry.
What can I?
all right. I guess I'll be moderating this. Unfortunately for Carmaine, I know he wanted to, but this is my idea, so I'm doing it. So I'll just be reading the questions. I'm going to start with the questions that we got over the course of the week from Discord and from Reddit. And then we'll take some live questions from the audience towards the end. So the first question is from Professional. Where did the idea for the mod come from?
Are we recording?
Oh, right. That's a good question.
Yo, getting the video shadow play going.
So you can tell we're very prepared and professional.
Yes, we're extremely well.
Hey, John.
Carmen, I thought you said you were. Are you able to record?
Hang on.
All right, we'll just be a couple minutes while Carmen gets his recording software set up.
Remember when we had a Twitch channel, Carmen?
Oh God.
Lamau? Right, can I? Well,
I think Chroma still owns that.
Oh shit! Really?
Right, everyone speak for a second.
No.
What's up?
Stop recording.
We are very professional here, guys.
Where the hell did that record to? Is my new question.
Dehydrated. It's the same as being drunk.
Yes, Kennedy voice reveal. This is true.
This is a voice reveal for most of the people here who, if people are at least semi-new.
Congratulations, most of us are Brits.
Right, so my recording doesn't work at all.
Ah, shit.
Kag, you said you could also record?
Kag?
Kag?
Yeah, hold on. I'm figuring out my mic because it's 3 a.m. so I need to figure out my mic.
We'll do a couple.
Not making noise.
So No just asked, is it alright if I record this and then send us the recording later? Yeah.
Yes.
If you know how to record, then.
Also, I do want to give a shout out to a bunch of the Crossknock devs in the audience as well, Globus and Leaf. I don't think Fenny is here, but
does Irredentia? Do you want to come in here, dude? You're a dev as well.
Yeah.
He said he wasn't going to speak, but yeah, he
Oh,
can be
okay.
on the stage. I'll let him if he wants to come.
It's like
get on the stage.
Comic-Con. You just like grab like the dev from the audience and drag them up.
Oh dear, this is so. There's 76 people. That's fair few.
I've had classes this big in high school.
Canadianschools.jpg.
What, you don't have 40
high
classes?
school?
Yeah, bro. Most of my classes were like 35.
Oh,
at,
and
like,
there's a
grade 12.
Confederate flag in the audience. That's a ban. Nice.
Ooh.
Yeah, don't do
That
that.
didn't take long.
Yeah, don't be a racist.
Holy shit, the government's listening in. Oh my
Oh
god.
god!
No!
Which one? Who knows?
The company is in the audience.
I thought you said you had classes with 75 people in it in high school.
Oh, no, that's like gym
Oh,
class.
Lord. I was like, I didn't
Gym
have classes that large until I got into college.
Yeah, no, like obviously. But I mean, like my classes were usually like 35 people.
Econ classes are like 200 people.
I mean, that's college. I'm talking high school. High school, like,
High school,
until you like, but the second year, third year, like even second year classes are really like 40 people in the history class.
How long
All
is he in the audience? Even though he is also a dev, but if he doesn't want to answer questions, then that's fine. Right? Is the person who is in the audience who was going to record? Are they recording?
Who knows?
This is literally 1784. That's correct. Yes.
This is literally 1864.
For all the people saying this is 1984, it's against our rules. It is in the rules. No Confederate flag imagery. So
No, just overall no imagery that could get someone in trouble or upset.
Don't be a racist.
Oh no.
I mean, it's not fucking hard. You wake up in the morning and you just don't be a racist. It's really easy.
Don't be a racist, forehead.
He's not being racist. He's being
What am I going to do today?
silence.
Again, for the individual who's said that they're going to be recording, are they recording?
Yeah.
I hope they are.
They're going down in history as the person on the right side.
We are good at this. Yeah, I thought I could record. I do some recording.
It's been
Find out
fine.
no noise. Like,
Begin.
I'm not. Can't be asked to figure out.
Honestly, real shame that Chroma still has a Twitch channel, then.
I accidentally.
I don't actually know if that's true. I don't really know.
Give me a shout out in your best British voice, Daddy Carmaine. Excuse me. Excuse
That's bad.
me.
That's a horny post. Ban him.
Mano.
Yes, Alanch, you can
being
join.
horny.
Alanch, yes, you can join. You're a dev. You can just join yourself. You don't need our permission.
Okay, so no
right
is
click and go.
yes. No is recording. That's not confusing and concise. Right, we can begin.
Okay.
Oh,
All right. So, where did the idea for the mod come from? How did it start, and how did it grow? And are any original developers still around? Carmaine, I'll deflect this one to you.
Oh Jesus!
Carmaine,
Right.
Bob,
So
like,
the mod.
you know the story of Bob?
Initially, the mod was a different. It was called Natpop, I think.
Yeah, it was not Creek.
It was. This is before my time, and then the mod was that mod died, and then the devs from that mod created Kalterkrieg, who then did some things for a few months, and then I joined. Then original Kalterkrieg died, and then was restarted, and then about a year later it had another big problem, and it was semi-restarted again, and then that's got us to today where we're just it wouldn't be the Hearts of Ironfall modding community if there wasn't copious amounts of drama that make me want to die.
You can just like say Chroma and it triggers a kind of PTSD in these.
Is there-
Glaze over.
Hey, Carmen. Remember James?
Okay.
Okay,
So
I'll
we
leave it at
consider the start of the mod to be 2 years ago, February. So February of 2019. Is that's
Yeah.
when like this current iteration started.
Even
Yeah,
then,
pretty much.
there has been like soft resets of certain things even since then.
Yeah. Are there any original Natpop developers still on the team? I don't think so. Flizzy, maybe?
Ghoul is probably the
I
oldest
think there
one
is.
still here.
It's the Inder, is it not?
Inder is the longest term dev here. Longest term, but then Inder's also been in and out of activity. Longest dev who's been active for the entire time is me.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
at the same time.
Ghoul is also Ghoul's technically like been here longer than you, right?
No, Carmen was here before I was. I think we started off as the same rank though.
Oh, okay. That makes my rise to like head dev even more dumb.
It's
No-
done. Right.
So-
So hopefully that's somewhat good.
So just for our audience, if you want to ask new questions, you can put those in the Q&A questions channel. If you just want to chat along, you can do that in the voice chat channel. So that's what's going on.
Kennedy, back it up just a little bit. You're peeking again.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Honestly.
He's so
Alright.
happy.
So, all right, next question comes from Kumquat What, who actually is a booster of the server, which is cool. What's your initial design process when you start creating a tag and content, and can you walk us through high level tag creation? So I'm going to direct this to a couple people. Carmaine, you're our chief content person. So how do you do that?
Right, so we start off. You start with making some ideas, and then the first thing you do is create a proposal. So a proposal is basically everything you can think of that would actually just like is relevant to the development of a tag. So what I would usually include is the basic history up until game start, then the politics and national spirits, and any other important things to note at game start. And then figuring out, okay, what paths you want a country to take, what do those paths need, maybe even mocking up some kind of focus tree ideas. It doesn't necessarily have to be something concrete, but like, okay, so there's going to be an election in 1949, which will lead to social democracy, social liberalism, and social conservatism. And then those paths, there might be a coup on this path, which could bring it to this ideology and that kind of thing. You just basically make a big map of how everything can work. Write it all down in as much detail as you can, and then send it to the dev team and be told it's shit.
Yeah. Or no one says anything.
No, that's
You're
actually
left in,
That's
you're
worse,
left
actually.
in
more
limbo.
commonly is you put it in, and then crickets for like 2 days, and then
Yeah.
Everyone reads it and goes, "Yeah, it's good."
Everyone votes yes. There's no discussion. Just everyone votes yes. It's like, oh, I wanted to make sure this idea was good, and then but people are lazy. Oh well. But that's how I do it. So the proposal stage, and once the proposal's passed, then you start coding in game. So you start with the basics. So you start with the starting situation, and then generally what I'll do is map out a bunch of focus trees, and then as a skeleton, then go back into the focus trees, add effects. And as I'm adding effects, I might have to take or add focuses depending on what's needed and what's not. And then after I do focus trees, then comes event chains. So you might have an event chain for an election. You might have events that are triggered by a focus, or events that will load up different parts of a focus tree. And between events, focuses, and decisions, that's how your country is made.
Cool. Thanks for the proposal system is pretty uniform in the modding community now. I think Kaiserreich was the one that really popularized it. Galashnikov, you had something to add?
Yeah, the biggest thing about why most of our proposals kind of go through to the voting stage and not much discussion is because honestly, so much quality assurance goes in prior to it even being proposed that by the time it really gets around to the proposal stage, it's already been debated over and over and over again, where to go through another entire debate stage is kind of redundant. So most people go, I've already made my point clear on this and it's already been changed. So, you know,
Because there's nothing egregious in it. Like, you know,
all the majors went through some sort of debates. Mostly the ones that kind of end up with not much discussion or minors, things like that.
Yeah, we actually have a pretty close-knit team. The team is not actually, the core members of the team is not that big, so we're all pretty involved in each of the discussions. So if you write a proposal, most of the people who are going to care about what's in it already have made input prior to the proposal officially being proposed.
You write a proposal, then it goes to the thing. First thing happens is CAG moans about it because it messes up Germany in this way. Then ARD moans about it because it messes up Canada in this way. And then I just look at it like, huh, cool. And then completely miss the fact it's imbalanced, and then someone else moans about balance. It's like,
and then Duodex comes in with his foreign policy takes, and it's like, this is just completely unrealistic.
And then now we're on a completely new document, nowhere near where we started. But
and it hasn't even proposed yet.
That's
So-
how some tangents go.
Just to provide some context, though, every single country that will have content in our first release has a proposal, has lore. We are we are well past the proposal stage, I would say. There are not many countries that require proposals anymore.
Only like minors.
Minors, and if those are mostly just if somebody has a great idea and wants to throw it out there.
Even Chile has a proposal.
Yeah. Chile has a proposal.
Ireland.
Like
Argentina.
Ireland, Argentina. Yeah. Okay, so the next question, Kumquat has a series of questions here, and they were all pretty good. So what information do you start looking at when you have nothing? How do you decide where it fits into pre-existing content, and how do you judge if something is fun or not fun against how plausible it is?
Oh boy, can I answer this one?
Yeah, Galachnikov, go.
Because Russia absolutely feels that because of how different Russia in KR and KRG, how much it differs from the Soviet Union in the 40s. A lot of it goes down to, going to incredibly esoteric websites that might put me on a watch list. I've gone to plenty of Russian websites about very suspicious individuals and going through and trying to find out stuff. And then, of course, going through and trying to fact check a lot of this stuff because plenty of these websites just straight up lie about the people they're talking about. But a lot of it is also taking individuals that you could reasonably mold their early life to fit the scenario, like Shepilov. Shepilov in real life was a member of the Communist Party. He was part of Khrushchev's inner group. He actually tried to coup Khrushchev. But he was fairly young. He would have been just a child during the Civil War, and having grown up in Savinkov's Russia, which is what our canon is, it is reasonable to believe that he would probably still join the government and work within the government. So there's either finding individuals who like Shrinsky Shikmatov, very little information about him, but the information I was able to find was enough to kind of mold him into a reasonable head of state. Or you have individuals who have plenty of information, but it's on a completely different side of history, and you have to try to really kind of work them and make reasonable assumptions. I don't like to go through and take people and have them do shit they would probably never do.
No.
But that is typically where I start, is trying to find as many individuals who I can then pull from and then use that to kind of mold the proposal from there. I also try to look at either the nation's real-life policies that might still be used in a different type of path, or I might look at countries that are similar and go from there.
Just someone want. Oh yeah, go ahead. Finish up.
I think pre-existing content. How do you judge something's fun or not? Definitely, I try to put this into the Kaiserreich mentality. I try to imagine this path playing in Kaiserreich and saying, would I, as someone who played Kaiserreich long before I joined the team, would I have enjoyed that path if I played it? So as a continuation of Kaiserreich, we try to use a lot of Kaiserreich notes, or I'm trying to think of a good word here. We try to base a lot of the gameplay off of what logically Kaiserreich would evolve into, and that's where I kind of decide whether or not it would be fun or if it fits into the whole world.
Good.
Does someone want to discuss the plausibility versus fun part of the question? Because that is something that's been rated pretty heavily. Brett, go ahead.
Oh yeah, Brett, because it's quite
Middle Africa. So that's my accent. Middle Africa is the case of, okay, plausibility. You can't have a continent-spanning colony lasting more than, any amount of time. However, taking that away from the player isn't particularly fun, whereas allowing them to see that collapse happen, before their eyes in a more slow burn, that's more fun. It comes down to what we... It's having the story happen at the most interesting part, if Middle Africa had already been collapsed, that's something that's happened previous. It's cool lore, and you can read about it on the wiki or whatever, and that's interesting, but experiencing that is a lot more enjoyable. Starting the story there is far more enjoyable than just putting it in a dusty page in a wiki somewhere. 3 paragraphs in. Like, yeah, that's pretty much what I've got to say. It comes down to like, well, what can I get the most gameplay out of it? As you know, like at the end of the day, as much as this is an exercise in alternate history and such, it is still a game. We're still on Hearts of Iron at the end of the day. So the question is, how much is plausibility going to get in the way of making things enjoyable for the player? I'd say.
Then there's the debate about kind of the wackiness versus the grounded aspect of things. Obviously, TNO has, let's be honest, quite a lot of wacky stuff in it. And all I need to say is Plock, and that kind of summarizes that. Then you've got Kaiserreich, which has kind of cut out a lot of the wackiness, which has been divisive, sure. It's just a different direction of how it's gone. How we're trying to do it is we're not really having much in the way of wacky stuff in Kalterkrieg. We're not focusing on trying to make something that's really crazy and out there, and trying to make something that's grounded and generally a realistic take on what this could be. Fun, obviously, but plausible rather than wacky. I wouldn't say realistic, actually. Realistic's probably the wrong word, because it's alternate history. It's not going to be realistic. Germany being a monarchy in 1950 is madness, but it's just trying to have a plausible take on what it can be. That might be a tangent.
Cool. Thanks for the answers. I will say Middle Africa is something that I'm really glad that our lore is that it's still intact at Star, because we have some really cool stuff planned for the collapse.
Oh yeah,
really, really cool stuff.
Oh yes,
hard art gamer stuff.
Don't say gamer stuff.
Okay.
Oh, no, I leave that to Oscar Dev.
Physical asks, is there any plan for kind of a demo?
Wait, hold on. You skipped over Globus.
Yeah, we kind of answered that.
Okay, true.
So Physical asks, is there any plan for a kind of demo? I can just short answer that. No, we have not really talked about it. And
I don't think there's really anywhere in the world where we can make a demo. Anyway,
I mean, I'll say it's not out of the question, but it's not something we've discussed.
What we'll probably do is probably open testing, and not anytime soon, obviously, but we'll probably start bringing on testers. And we have discussed this, bringing on testers and perhaps kind of being really lax with what you can and cannot show. I mean, with some projects, they don't want you to show anything. With this, we don't really keep a lot of stuff very secret. You know, we don't have secret paths that no one can know about. So if we do bring on testers for like a closed beta, we'll probably open up a channel for people just to dump their screenshots and talk about what they've played.
Yeah, that is something we've talked about. If you guys want to become testers, you won't be able to just apply and say, oh, I've played Kaiserreich, that qualifies me. That's not going to happen. You will have to have worked on some kind of mod or tested for something to actually be qualified to be a tester. So if you would like to test this mod, you should get started on that. Mushroomy asks, do you guys share the TNO idea of authoritarianism being inherently unstable / unsustainable? I'll let you answer that.
That one, okay. This one's a bit of a story and a tangent. For those who don't know, I do work on the TNO team. I'm part of their Ukraine team. I actually pretty much lead the Ukraine team over there. I was there for the very tail end of Pink Panzer being the dev team, the dev lead. From what I've been told from a lot of individuals who've worked on TNO for years, that was kind of a slapdash justification for the old lead dev of TNO kind of forcing his canon upon everyone else. For those that don't know, the old canon, which has now been completely thrown out, there is no canon from what I understand, was that Bormann wins the Civil War and then collapses within like 10 years. But people asked, like, hey, why is that the canon? And the old TNO lead dev said, oh, because authoritarianism always collapses.
I assumed the reason why that was the old canon is so when you reach 1972, you don't have anything that, when sort of player looks at the next start date, everything makes sense. So there's no, oh look, Sublin has reunited Russia in some blessed paradise. No, everything's sensible, everything's real, plausible, and everything makes sense for a player just to quickly go, okay, so Germany is still Nazi, America's still liberal, Russia's been
sort of, but at the same time, you have to understand that TNO was. It started off as someone's like alternate history RP or something like that. And so I've spoken to people. They make it very clear that he had the old TNO lead dev had their vision that they kind of wanted to put upon everyone else. So from my understanding, and I am speaking speculatively, that was less of an ideology that they're trying to teach and more of just like an explanation for why their canon happened. For that reason, or rather to answer the question, what I personally believe is inherently unstable. There are authoritarian dictatorships that have existed for plenty of decades, if not a century in some instances. While there are authoritarian dictatorships that can collapse, there are others that perhaps don't collapse, or at least they don't require massive overall, reform not to collapse. There can be minor reforms. Like again, we've seen the Russian Civil War. Vernadsky, who is considered the reformer, is still not, a democratic individual. His path is not going to start, oh, here's elections and everyone's free now, even though he's off dem in the Civil War. As soon as he wins, he's going right back to natpop. And again, while there may be some reforms that perhaps lead to the Russian state surviving a little bit longer, it's not going to be, I wouldn't say it's not authoritarian. I would say that Kalterkrieg isn't necessarily trying to teach anyone anything. We're just trying to make a continuation of Kaiserreich that's fun and enjoyable and fairly plausible. We don't expect you to come here and learn anything necessarily. I certainly hope you take some things away, like you find some interesting individuals you didn't know before, and you look more into more political movements, things like that. But yeah, we don't have a message or a lesson we're trying to teach at all here.
I kind of want to answer this one myself. I think, I think a lot of people on the team consider the Accord, the Entente, to be the good guys. Like, I don't think we're shy about that. I'm certainly not shy about that. I think they're the good guys. But that doesn't mean that we're going to necessarily make the Accord destined to win. We think both sides have their strengths, and that's kind of how we see it. We don't think that Germany is necessarily destined to collapse.
No, with Germany, it's less. In my opinion, it's the Accord are, to our modern day Western liberal point of view, the Accord are what we see as the good guys. But there are no bad factions in this. Germany,
except Middle Africa.
Yeah, I was gonna say from this perspective, you're all the bad guys. From their perspective,
from Germany's point of view, they are the good guys, and they are trying to protect the balance of power and the way, trying to keep the world stable and keep it peaceful. And the Accord are trying to give everyone more rights and that kind of thing. But there's no evil. There's nobody straight up evil. It's a case of everyone is good to a point. Some people may be good to more points depending on your point of view, but no one's just, I am going to genocide everyone. Let's go, because the world ideology hasn't really developed in that way. Even national populist Russia isn't as bad, let's say, as Nazi Germany was. It's not as radical.
Great, but
I think the word you're struggling to find is mustache twirlingly evil.
There we go. That's
no one is going, ha ha ha. Everyone does what they.
There's no Burgundy in KRG.
Yeah, essentially.
All right, let's move on. So yeah, I'm jumping around on the doc if you guys are wondering. So this question will be directed towards Duodex. Poot asks, what type of doctrines will be included for land, navy, and air? Will be based off the lessons of Kalterkrieg 2 or the OTL Cold War, or just kept the same?
So that's a really good question. Personally, I would say we're trying to take a little bit from both, because sure, there's lessons from the and all that, but on the other hand, this is a Cold War mod. Even if it's not our timeline's Cold War, and so to sort of have flavor and to get ideas for doctrine. I personally have been looking more towards the Cold War model of doing things, and but then countries that had certain experiences in World War II will will have spirits or technology or that sort of all those. Personally, I think it's more fun to especially in the sort of military strategy kind of thing, to look at what happened historically and see how we can change it rather than pull whatever we can out.
Duo, you're cutting in and out there, my guy. So,
Still talking?
try. All right, we'll move on. I think Duo's on his phone, which is why it's.
I can kind of finish up there. I would say that the Cold War and the Second Weltkrieg type doctrine. The Second Weltkrieg is something I've written mostly out. I got to do a little bit of changes to it, but it is something that we have actually planned out almost in its entirety. And for the most part, most of the tactics and the way the war played out, at least on the small scale, is very similar to OTL. I think a lot of the tactics that evolved were fairly inevitable. So for that reason, the lessons learned from OTL World War II and the KRTL Second Weltkrieg are fairly similar. So the tactics would evolve into the Cold War pretty almost identical, I would say. There's a few changes, but that's about it.
A lot of the big differences are countries which pick, which tactics to do. So Germany will not be sort of doing like the forward defense that we did in 50 OTL. It's going to be a very aggressive country. It's going to have a navy, and so it's going to pick tactics and strategies that respond to that. Whereas the Accord will be a lot more invested in the defense, setting up like NATO did, but even more.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Okay, it's actually me. Alfarius asks, how will the player be kept busy considering that the goal is to avoid a large-scale war? How many smaller proxy wars with Hoi Force combat? How will many smaller proxy wars work with Hoi Force combat and faction systems?
I can try to answer this one.
Sure.
Go for it.
Well, generally, what will keep a player interested is the same thing that would get people still interested when they're playing TNOs. I'll be significantly less narrative heavy, which is one complaint for TNO. So generally, lots of events, decisions, like mini games, like keeping a lot of like tabs open, like a lot of managing internal stuff, that sort of thing. And when it comes, I can't talk about the wars though. That's not my wheelhouse.
As well, the idea is to build like macro systems into the gameplay to make that peacetime engaging. Stuff which most nations will have. Overhauling economic stuff or whatever. Just so to a certain extent, like.
There'll be plenty of internal stuff to do as well, and at the same time, there will be some proxy wars in which
building your stuff, you can go fuck up Africa.
Exactly.
And
at the same time,
if you want wars, there'll be plenty of wars in this timeline. It just generally the majors won't be involved. I mean, we have a massive Russian civil war, and we've hinted at a Middle Africa collapse. There's tons of conflict in this timeline.
At the same time, the volunteer system will probably be used, but it will be more molded towards an intervention system than the volunteer system. The volunteer system is not great at like showing what volunteers were, but they're pretty good for something like a military intervention. Like I think TNO is another. TNO is really one of the only Cold War mods that came out, as well as Iron Curtain, but I haven't played Iron Curtain. The South African War, the volunteers come off much more as an intervention force than volunteers. So I think that's a safe way to assume that we're definitely going to be using that to sort of show proxy wars.
Yeah, I think proxy wars are definitely something that you guys will be heavily not only want to invest yourselves in, but like you'll have to be because of some large macro systems that we still have in the design phase for how the war will shape out. You won't if it's not like, oh, you lost the war, oh, I don't get their factories. It's like, oh, well, if you lose this proxy war, that actually could trigger the domino chain to you actually losing the game. And so you'll have to get involved in a lot of proxy wars while wrestling like the internal consequences of that. It's kind of what we're trying to balance. Kaguru, here's a question for you. Bloody Ferdinand asks, is there a natpop path for Germany?
Well, this has been mentioned. This has actually been answered and answered a few times. Every time the answer is a resounding no. Not now, not ever. Firstly, because, well, natpops and what natpops represent here is basically, they're like revenge. There's no big revanchist movement in Germany. They just in Germany the prevailing sentiment is to just keep the status quo. They are the top of the pile and they want to stay there. They don't need any sort of major agitation and beat my chest, I'm better than you kind of thing, because they are, in their opinion, they already are. So they don't need to do anything to reinforce it.
There will be different paths in Germany. You're not set down one exact path, but it's not going to be anything extreme. You're not going to be able to go natpop or like radsock.
There is one path that, if you really, really want to squint, you could maybe say is a bit fascist inspired, but it's not.
It's Pat art, isn't it?
It's Pat art.
I'll just reveal. I think I can reveal. Can I reveal who it is?
Wait, which one? Reveal what you want.
Yeah, fuck it. It's Hans-Jürgen von Blumenthal. One of in real life, he was a member of the Stahlhelm paramilitary. Then joined the Nazi
bromance one.
Then turned against the Nazis and died after the 20th of July plot. But his path is there's kind of populist things, because he tries to harken back to the idea of Bismarckian socialism, which wasn't socialism at all, but it was basically a way that conservatives tried to get the working classes on side. So there is kind of the idea of kind of populist people's community kind of ideas that technically the Nazis were based on, but then it doesn't go anywhere near as far. They're not trying to. It's not a case of trying to uproot the new order. It's not a conservative revolution. It's trying to make Germany as strong as it can be.
And there's no racial element at all.
The reason for that, those policies, is actually more so because it's precisely because, like, one reason for the so-called advanced welfare system under Bismarck was actually to protect against socialism. We protect against the socialists by copying their social policy, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so they will defend. So the idea is to defend them. Like, the idea in that path is basically you defend yourself against those liberal revolutionaries, so-called, by co-opting some of their ideas and applying them to your own ends.
Yeah, that's
basically Bismarck statesmanship.
That's pretty right. That's exactly right. And Germany, like, the SPD is still a very powerful movement within Germany, but they are not going to come. After the disaster. I don't know if you guys have read the Germany PR. You know that the SPD was elected in 1936. And proceeded to run the Germans, or proceeded to be basically pull in Neville Chamberlain, and with the syndicalists, and so that has left them extremely weak politically, and they're making a comeback, but they're still never going to get anywhere near the levers of power.
Especially when everybody is trying to kneecap them at every option, which in turn drives them towards more radical movements, certain revolutionary Republican ideology. Depending on what you do. Yeah.
Aura asks, some devs refer to 60s content as 0.2. Will it really be the second major patch? No, it will not.
It's just the second major. Like, think of it like 0.1.1.
Yeah, so we haven't really talked about how we're going to number the patches yet, but
0.2 is
the version 2.0 may have 60s content far in the future, but we are the second patch, we will have a number of hot fixes and reworks and things for 50s content before moving on to the 60s.
Yeah, currently, just treat 0.2 as the kind of colloquial idea of the big update after release.
The 60s content is a vast conspiracy we use to dismantle dev questions we don't know how to answer. So
That's exactly right.
Really planned out anything.
For those individuals who follow TNO, or what we refer to as 0.2 is what TNO refers to as TNO2, meaning the next 10 years of content.
Cool. Let's see. All right. So here's a question from Reddit. Lori for Hall of Fame. Oh, Lori, you got a fan on Reddit. I don't know if this is actually you.
No,
What's the deal with Spain and India? Are they socialist in the same way that San Marino is, like in that they'll lose power soon after gains start, or will they have major roles to play? I don't know. If anyone...
Spain is
Spain's neutral, isn't it?
Spain is
Forward leaning.
It is pretty much Spain in our timeline, just in reverse. So instead of it being under Franco, it is under a socialist government. Now they're not full bore. We want to spread the entire world revolution. That's why they didn't get involved in the Second Weltkrieg. But they are still there, and it makes everyone slightly kind of nervous. Are they going? No, they're not going to try and undermine anyone, and they will eventually side with the Accord. But they're not going. Everyone's suspicious of them at the game start. Similar case with Norway.
Yeah, the Accord in general is to an extent has to, but is willing to reconcile with socialist countries, especially because syndicalism is dead, and so like socialism is still alive though. A little bit more moderate brands.
More social democratic, more DemSoc than.
Yeah, and so they the Accord, to find more friends, because Germany starts out far more powerful, they have to reconcile and accommodate these socialist countries. As for India, our India dev is not here. I can just provide a quick answer. India is, as you guys know, the India rework in Kaiserreich is frozen, and ours kind of is as well. We have a starting setup. We have kind of a situation for India, but it's not been developed very much, and it's unclear whether it will have content in the first version we release. But India will be powerful, and they will have a force to play, especially in China.
They're going to be, well, essentially, our current setup for India is very similar to how they are, or how they were in the real life 1950, under the control of the Indian National Congress. Mm-hmm. Again, it may change again because it's a case.
Who knows what Rylock's going to do?
No, and I guess this can be a time where we can kind of talk about what influence KR has had on KRG, which is obviously, yes, a lot. But in terms of the Russia rework, which has recently been announced for the public, we have known about for months.
We've known about it since the day it began.
We've known about it since Rylock was like, I have these kind of vague ideas. We've known about it since since Kerensky was still in charge of it in it before that was replaced a long time ago. But anyway, so we've known about the reworks for a very long time, and what tends to happen is we will reveal what can work with KR currently, but that doesn't spoil what KR are planning to do. So in the case of Savinkov, the only thing, so we basically kept the name of, in public teasers, we kept the name of the party as what it is in KR currently, and we used the current law for its description. Everything else, it is just a simple switch of party name changes, and it fits with the rework. Other larger reworks, so National France, that kind of had quite a few, because that meant National France's development in this has been a bit of a, we start it,
clusterfuck.
Then we start again, then the dev leaves. And it doesn't help that at one point, one dev wanted to use the rework, then the next dev didn't, and then the next, well, we have to, obviously, because the rework's done. But so the Chaos reworks have every now and again thrown us for a bit of a loop. But
I think a good example of using a rework without revealing it is our Danubia PR, which Demisius can talk about, but that incorporates the the Austria-Hungary rework and Kaiserreich, you will notice that we reveal very little about the lore for 1948 because we don't want to spoil it for them.
There
And we
is,
actually-
like, obviously we have lore written down, and you can go back and you can get hints of it, and that may change because some ideas have been changed in Rework. So we'll go back and we'll, hey, thank you, Crazy. We'll go back and we'll just change a couple of party names here and there, just to make sure everything lines up. But we've made sure that when that rework's eventually done, we're not spoiling anything for you because we don't want to do it. We're making our own separate thing. We're not just, obviously, this isn't a canon successor to KR. We are just one of many potential possibilities.
Yeah, we are not canon. We are not.
Canon.
Some people are saying in the chat that that the associate program means we are not canon. And all right, so next we got a lot of questions on the AUS here. And I am technically the dev for the AUS, but Kalashnikov wrote the proposal, the 35-page proposal. And so I'm actually going to let him answer most of these. So, how the fuck did the American Union State manage to win the war, Kalashnikov?
Here we go.
Oh boy.
Here we go.
So the AUS winning the war was not us saying that this is the most likely outcome. This is just simply the outcome that we thought was fairly interesting, and we decided to roll with it. I have written down the idea of how it happened.
Elaborate on the Canada part and the CSA part.
The reason why is because essentially everything that could have gone wrong for the Federalists and the CSA did go wrong. The Federalists decided that MacArthur decided that he wasn't going to pull his forces to one side or the other, meaning that he got split right down the middle. The CSA was overcome with infighting between the American Federation of Labor and the International Workers of the World, a la Spanish Civil War. They had plenty of they had a lack of experienced high command. They had difficulty organizing their divisions, things like that. And again, I'm not saying this is necessarily, this is exactly how it would have gone. They would have totally effed up in every single way. This is just saying, hey, to kind of explain why we chose the AUS, or to kind of, also Butler did die during the war, but to explain why the AUS won, or how the AUS won, the answer is...
CSA got invaded by New England, Canada near the end as well.
CSA also did get intervented. There was an intervention by Canada as well. The answer is essentially everything that could go wrong for the Federalists and the CSA did go wrong. I based a lot of the combats and how the AUS organized itself off of the Nationalists during the Spanish Civil War. I actually based a lot of the American Civil War off of the Spanish Civil War because I think it's very obvious that the American Civil War and Kaiserreich is kind of the, even though I know there is a Spanish Civil War as well, but to have this big global ideological battle in a foreign country in KR, I think it's really obvious to say that KR's American Civil War is kind of like their Spanish Civil War. And I base a lot of how the AUS acted off of what the Nationalists did. They took their best divisions and made an army of maneuver and kind of moved them up and down the line where they were needed. They really tried to pool together as much of their resources. They had plenty of help materially and advisors from Germany as well to help. They got plenty of tanks from Germany. So again, the AUS winning is not us saying this is the most likely outcome for the American Civil War. Instead, it's saying, hey, this is just kind of what we did. This is what we thought was fairly interesting. And I've just essentially gone through and designed the Civil War to be as generous to the AUS as possible.
And those of you who wanted to know what happened to MacArthur, he's 6 feet under after being shot.
You took a great relish in saying that.
Is Jim Crow... Okay, sorry, go ahead, Carmen.
No, I was just saying, MacArthur is very, very dead.
Yes. His ideas still live on, though. Is Jim Crow still a thing in American Union State? Yes, it is. And to fit into that, is the Silver Legion clan or War Powers Committee still alive? We are not having a natpop path for the American Union State for a couple of reasons. First of all, being just like, oh, racist path, cool, is not very actually good, like, lore development thing. And it's also not very realistic. Huey Long was on we've organized the America First Party to be this kind of one-party state, but has these number of factions, none of which is the Silver Legion. And the reason why the Silver Legion is not around is because Peli tried to coup Huey Long and was executed for it.
Not only
Isn't there
that,
still a War Powers community?
when Huey Long was assassinated, that's when Peli tried to launch his coup, and
Right,
it just
okay.
absolutely fell apart.
Hey, Ghoul, I remember correctly. Weren't the War Powers committee still around, or was
Yes,
Yeah, it is.
they're structured. For those who we know who killed Huey Long, it was the War Powers Committee. They attempted they were going to go ahead and attempt their coup, but then Peli messed the whole thing up. Peli launched his coup before the War Powers Committee was able to, meaning that War Powers Committee had to stop what they were doing, and the last thing they wanted absolutely was Peli taking over. So at game start, while the War Powers Committee is behind the death of Huey Long, they have kind of dropped the ball because of what happened, and now they've been reorganized as there's no longer a war. They're now considered the Industrialists, and they're kind of working behind the scenes. You might see them, you might not. You know, we're not really revealing that yet, but they're still around. They're not led by the same guy, Mosley. Forget his name. He's way too old at this point. They've become, yeah, that guy. They've reorganized less into a type of, again, War Powers Committee, more into like a bunch of very powerful industrialists who are going to try to pull the strings behind the curtain. You'll have to see.
More questions about the Americas. What happened to the Federalists? Well, this was kind of answered in the chat, but I'll just say it out loud. Some Federalists escaped to New England. Most escaped to the Pacific States, and we will have more on that for you fairly soon. Will there be any populist party style leads to the American U.S.? Well, the America First Party is basically the populist party. There's very little difference between the two. Yeah, that's what it is. They are populist. Is Upton Sinclair doing stuff in the PSA? He is in the PSA.
He is, but I don't think he's doing that much.
Yeah, he's not doing much. Did the Americans take part in the Entente invasions of the Third International? If they did, how many? I believe it's just volunteers. Yeah, go ahead, Laurie.
Because I wrote the New England part of this. New England was the only Entente member of an American breakaway state, and no, outside of a few volunteer divisions, they mostly were focused in the case of an AUS invasion. So Americans were generally not involved outside of volunteers. And like
They
one or
did
two
use
divisions.
plenty of New England's. The Canada did use plenty of New England, as well as the Great Lakes industry, though.
Yeah, they used
totally.
a bunch of the industry, a bunch of the shipbuilding, all came from New England.
But I'm trying to say there's limited troops on the ground.
Okay, Chief Potato asks, why did the main design of the German Eagle transferred from white in Kaiserreich to black in Kalterkrieg? Carmaine?
Hang on, what's happened? What's
We didn't want to get sued.
The eagle is white in Kaiserreich.
I don't think there's any intent behind that. I think it's just black looks better over blue.
Yeah, that's it.
He's talking about the logo.
Then
The logo.
I thought you were talking about the eagle on the AUS flag. I'm like, wait, it's not black.
Oh no, sorry, I meant in the logo.
It's just, I mean, it's just an eagle. In reality, it is black.
All right.
It's a Prussian eagle. It's not white.
It's just a Prussian eagle.
Yeah, actually, our eagle is correct. Kaiserreich really changed theirs.
No, it's a secret meaning about how the heart of the Kaiserreich is becoming corrupted.
yeah, it's metaphorical. You wouldn't understand.
All right, we got a lot of questions about the economy.
Oh.
And so I can give an answer here. I'm willing to reveal a fair amount of stuff. I have written the economy proposal or the economy progress report, and I just haven't put it out yet because we're missing a bunch of icons, a lot of icons. And I don't want to, unlike a
If
certain
you're a
game
focus
company, I
icon
don't want.
artist, we would really like you to apply. We need some.
Unlike a certain game company, I don't like releasing content without its proper icons finished. So,
Oh shit!
so.
Oh,
I'll just give you guys an inclination. We so Duodex here is redoing the TNO economy. He's doing the TNO economy rework. And we when I initially designed the economy rework or economy system in Kalterkrieg, I felt that the tab where you have a balance and you have actual money was not very fun and interesting and just confused the player. That was kind of my initial philosophy, and so I tried to design a system that basically used the existing systems. And so we essentially are using just civs to directly correspond to government spending. You will spend a fair amount on your existing laws, on your existing economy laws. We have laws for healthcare, we have laws for education, and on top of that, we designed a system called military spending, where just by existing divisions and planes and ships cost civs, they will consume civs, and so you will have to. That is the way we are going to get the player to motivate the player to demobilize after the Second Weltkrieg and to stay. It's kind of a more fluid system than Kalterkrieg's current division limit. Very similar, but ours is a little bit more fluid. Carmen, what were you saying?
Reich's division limit.
Oh, and you can't cheat the division limit by building divisions. It counts the battalions, not the number of divisions.
That's true. Yes, it's by brigades. So you can't cheat it by building 40 widths. And that is essentially our system with a few things that I've left out. But you will not be able to build a lot of civs. That is not. The civs are quite expensive. We've adjusted the costs. You will grow your economy through natural growth, which we have accommodated for in game, and through your focus tree and things like that. But yeah, Kagura, do you have anything else to say? Because I know you've been working on this as well.
Well, it's actually one point I need to correct you on is that it's not exactly government spending, but it's GDP. Like the factories themselves represent the GDP, and construction speed is GDP growth, pretty much. That's what we're actually modeling.
Yeah, that's correct. And so we will be much more in detail about this when I do release that progress report. If someone wants to come and make some law icons for us, feel free. We need about 35 of them because we've got a lot of economy laws. But until that happens, it will remain shelved. But the system is pretty much there. We've balanced a lot of it. Obviously, we'll need to do more balancing once we really start the testing phase. That's pretty much all the questions that I really wanted to ask on the document. So we're going to head to the chat that you guys have been.
Really? We got through that quite.
Well, there are a few good questions there.
Oh, actually, you know what? Here, Laurie, I'll toss you a bone here. Is it possible to end the residential school program as Canada and improve First Nations rights and living conditions?
Eventually.
All right. Is there an equivalent?
It's depressing.
Oh no, I'm just admiring your efficiency.
Yeah,
no, what else
no. I wish
say?
more people would answer like that. Is there an equivalent of the OTL Nuremberg trials against the leaders of the Third International?
Ah, yes.
Yeah, Carmen.
The Birmingham trials. So there is no one centralized trial against all syndicalists, where each country essentially does their own. And by game start, the only country that hasn't done trials is the United Kingdom. So in the early game, you can hold the Birmingham trials and try all of your favourite criminals and other assorted maximists and syndicalists, and put them all behind bars or kill them all. It's quite good. There's not much else.
He's very nice.
It's a lot of clean fun, according to Carmen.
Yes, but no, there is trials there. There's already the Italian states have held trials, and there's already been some tribunals in France. So it is a bit of a mess because, I mean, France is split in two. No one wants to recognize. It's a bit of a. It's basically, most of the actual war crimey stuff came out of Britain rather than France. Thank you, Mosley.
Mosley's already beheaded.
Yes, Mosley is not beheaded. Mosley got Mussolini'd. If you look up how Mussolini died in real life, it's not a nice. It's not a nice way.
He's beheaded by a rope, but
Didn't he essentially get lynched?
What's that?
Didn't he essentially just get lynched?
We toned down the violence because we were.
I think Mussolini got shot about 20 times, then hung down from a petrol station.
Yeah, that's basically.
All right, let's move on from the Mussolini. So I don't know if Iridantista wants to talk. We have a couple questions about Italy. Will it unite on its own, or will big powers get involved? Macias, I think you can answer that as well.
Don't give the equal laugh. Come on, man.
Laughs in the museum.
And yes, to that question, it may unite on its own, and big powers may get involved. The Danubia can actually trigger a unification, and their end goal is a neutral / Danubia-friendly border. One less thing to worry about. But there are other organic patterns where you might end up with a pro-accord Italy. But there might even be a war. I can't remember. I haven't really been looking at the Italy treaties. I can't speak for evidence.
Cool.
We do plan most games for Italy to have united, because Italy isn't the same kind of ideological fuckfest that France is, where Germany is very much adamant that their France is the real France, and French Republic that was stopped being recognised by basically everyone now also claims to be the real France. So it's kind of like, who's the fucking real France here? In Italy, it's the Italian Republic obviously claims the whole of Italy. Sardinia, Two Sicilies, and the Papal State don't claim all of Italy yet, though Sardinia will press their claim on Italy. And by the mid-50s, you'll have generally united Italian state, be it either neutral or accord. I don't think we have a plan for a Reichspakt Italy. I don't think.
I don't think we do, and if we do, we should can that, because that would make things horribly
I think there's a
unbalanced.
kind of Reichspakt adjacent path for the Italian Republic, but it's more pro-Danubia than it is pro-Germany.
Yeah, and as we've teased before, Danubia and Germany are not destined to be together forever, because Danubia, unlike Germany, is a democracy, a constitutional monarchy. They have some pretty solid democratic reforms, and they...
Not like Germany that much.
Yeah.
Or precisely, he doesn't like the Kaiser. So...
Well, he quite famously was a hard person to get along with, so it's not that shocking that Otto fucking...
Yeah.
Is Southern Italy as undeveloped as OTL and Kalterkrieg? I think the answer to that is yes, although I think Erdantisa might provide an answer to that in the chat. I have played through Sardinia a few times, and I have seen the Sardinians annex Southern Italy almost every time fairly quickly, so I think that's supposed to happen. I don't know if that's actually been fixed yet. But yeah, if you guys are curious, a lot of nations we have are playable through the first few years. A lot of them are a tremendous amount of fun. So I can't wait to show you guys, what we've been doing. We get really excited when we do PRs.
Yeah, I will say this for Two Sicilies: it is almost impossible to develop. So just to be blunt, trying to develop a Bourbon monarchy in the south of Italy in 1950 is genuinely impossible.
I believe.
Perhaps in Swiss.
Die.
Black spot of Europe.
So there is plan to we may be reworking the Italian situation rather substantially down the line.
Yeah, Erdantisa says yes. Southern Italy is mostly on the same level as OTL economy-wise. And this is another question people have had. Edward is infertile, and yes, Queen Elizabeth will eventually become queen.
Yep. Long live the Queen. So basically, Edward will die earlier than he did in real life. Albert will die later, but he will still die before his brother. And then Parliament will basically just go, okay, we recognise Elizabeth as the heir. For the biggest the biggest reason for it, because obviously you can make the claim that, oh no, because actually it should be this random prince's son or whatever the fuck. The biggest thing for it is it just makes it so much easier if Elizabeth is queen. We don't have to Photoshop a million. We're already having to do that for Germany. We don't have to do it for everywhere else.
Oh God, having to try to get Kaiser Wilhelm IV's daughter is a pain in the ass.
I actually found a search for that.
What's that?
I actually found a search for that.
Send it to us. Why haven't you sent it to us yet?
I think
I did.
it's at a wedding, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Can the DSA come to power in the Great Lakes? Yes, but not until the very end of the 50s.
It also got renamed, so it's not DSA anymore. But
what is it?
I can't remember. I've been so
open up the document.
I've been so finals focused. I've forgotten actually, but I changed it.
Name. I think it should be Democratic Socialist Party rather than Democratic Socialists of America. But
Maybe. All right.
yeah.
It wasn't a reference to the actual DSA organization.
Yeah, exactly. When they changed the lore mid Q&A, yeah, that's exactly right. I'm feeling a little.
I usually thought it was thing. Yeah. If you want though, we have Elizabeth marrying Philip. The same as she did at OTL.
Yeah, we that wasn't just a random thing. We talked about that pretty substantially, and we
realized he died. Like, oh shit, we need to actually complete the event for this. Let's quickly do that and tease it. But no.
Yeah, that's why there's a bunch of typos in that and some mischaracterizations, but it's mostly right.
The reason for that wedding is Charles may not be born. That we obviously.
Well, if you do it in January, Charles can be born.
Anyway, the reason that wedding happens the same as it did OTL is because Philip is in exile as well. So in our timeline, Philip, born in Greece, exiled to Britain in 1924, I think, and then got basically adopted by the Mountbatten. Here,
yes,
he gets exiled to Britain, and then the next year, again gets exiled to Canada.
Yeah, they just follow the Mountbattens, basically, because as you all know, Lord Mountbatten is a very prominent admiral for Canada in the Second Kalterkrieg. And so that's pretty much why he's in Canada. And we felt that Elizabeth and Philip do actually love each other, and so therefore they'd still be together. We had considered, if you guys know, Lord Portchester was another suitor of Queen Elizabeth, but we felt that it just didn't really make sense to replace Philip.
Yeah, Mano, now you've run into the problem about why Charles may not be born is because the wedding happens later. The wedding happens in 1948 rather than 1947.
What ideologies can the Republic of China Federalists go? I don't know the answer to that. So
I think it's like from suck them to suck con, right?
Yes, so
they can a whole range.
Oh, they can go
they can go like
Radsock and Offsock as well, but those are more rare paths.
Everyone's just answered, right. So I'll just quickly explain the Chinese thing of southern China is both not completely federalists, but also isn't not federalists. It's weird. So basically, it's led initially by a coalition of the Federalists and the Kuomintang, the Nationalists. I probably butchered that pronunciation massively. But yeah, so you can go. The Federalist Party can remain in power as SOCDEM. You can go KMT left or right. The left KMT is RevRep. The right KMT is SOCCON. You can also go the Chinese Democratic League, which are liberals. And then there are other rarer paths planned.
Yeah, there is an Oth. There is an Othsock.
There is a potential Orthsock and also Radsock. The Orthsock one's meant to be extremely rare. The Radsock one more common. And then North China has a few different paths as well. It starts off Orthdem, but it can go Pator and natpop and sockpon, I think. So China is going to be one big old rainbow where you can go actually every single ideology.
Which that wasn't where we started. It wasn't like, oh, let's make it so China can go every ideology.
China it's still in the process of reunification. They're still trying to figure out what the modern China is.
It's basically going through an identity crisis, essentially.
Yeah.
All right, we have a question about the Ottomans. Hellbat, do you wanna join us up on the stage? Hello, Hellbat.
Thank you for giving me the ability to talk here.
Sure.
So, what was the question?
So the question is about Kuwait. Is it split? What's going on with Kuwait?
It's split, but like Ottomans control most of Kuwait, while the Saudis control like 20-30% of Kuwait.
Okay.
There was another questions about the Ottomans. May I answer that? It was
Sure.
about
Go ahead.
the plans about it. The Ottomans were developed before I joined, so some of them are left over, but it's basically what happened in real life between the CHP, JP, of Mustafa Kemal and the DP of Adnan Menderes, the Sakkans. Not the Sakkans, the social liberals. Yeah, market liberals. The Authoritarian Democrats of Mustafa Kemal, or since he's dead, İsmet İnönü, will seek for better relations with the Accord, while the market liberals of Menderes will seek better relations with the Germans, basically.
Yeah, because the Kemalists, as the old guard die off, they're going to slowly shift towards Sokden.
Yeah, about the military, because the military is mostly Kemalist, I do not believe there is going to be like a cursed, natpop or something like that military path where, they take over. That is not in my plans at the very least. For the first 10 years at least.
But largely, the Ottomans, the Ottoman state, we have renamed it from the Kingdom of Turkey to the Ottoman state as someone. I can't remember who gave the reasoning for it, but it was very good reasoning. And after I read it, I went into the files and changed the country name.
Yeah, we do actually listen to you guys sometimes. It does actually happen.
Sometimes. Oh, there is also a Sokkan path, but it wasn't much developed.
Yeah,
the main conflict of the Ottomans is going to be about Iraq, to say the very least.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on. I don't know if. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Hellbat.
Nothing. I was just going to mute myself.
Okay.
Thanks for allowing me to talk again.
Yeah, you can stay up here. Demasius, I don't know if you want to answer this. Will Tito show up?
Yes.
Oh boy.
We have some less delivery content lined up.
Yes.
He has many opportunities, but the Illyrian election will be a hard fought one against Tito. Spoilers, he probably will kick your ass. Aside from the regional elections, there's also the entire Von Mises Commission goes to Illyria investment chain, and if you do certain projects instead of other projects, Tito will get pissed off with you and come and send his pet economist Cardali to Vienna to blame and lecture your government about how they're doing it wrong and they should fuck off and let them get on with it. And you can kind of go, okay, or you can go, that's ridiculous, you're stupid. Yeah, I mean, obviously it lead to or from. So just as a bit of background, Danube has like a kind of ticking. How bad are the nationalist tensions right now? National idea, and it goes from not bad to holy fuck, what have you done? And obviously, if you piss off Tito and wind him up, you can kind of tick it one way or the other if you then kind of miserate with him. But yes, Tito is in the game. Yes, he does show up, and I think there are even some minister files for him in case things go really weird. But that is more down the line than I have currently developed, so I can't make hard promises I might change my mind.
Cool. All right, Carmen, we got a couple of questions about Portugal. What is happening with Portugal?
Oh, God. Right, before we do that, the person who's recording this says he needs to go to bed soon, so he's going to have to stop recording quite soon. So we may have to end the recorded part of this Q&A early, and then go back later on. And
then after we stop recording, we really start to leak shit.
Yeah.
We're going to tell you
So,
everything.
And if any of you try and say it was real,
So
we'll
is there
deny
any
it.
big questions? Actually, no, we'll just continue. So Portugal is a mess, but precisely, it is a bit of a black sheep in the Entente to start with, because they have not done the same kind of liberalising thing that France, Canada, Greece, and a couple others. However, that's not to say it's not going to happen, because Portugal tends to be fairly anti-German in their foreign policy, so they're not going to just up and leave and side of the Germans, because Germany is eyeing their stuff in Africa and they want that.
And plus, Portugal and Britain have been closed for what, centuries?
Tight as fuck, and have been since
It's a long alliance in
1340.
history.
But basically, they're going to go through the kind of same pressured liberalisation as the other Accord states did before game starts. So they're going to start all of them, but by 1960, they will likely be either conservative or liberal or whatever. It will be. So even though the game start is aesthetically very similar to Estado Novo Portugal under Salazar, by 1960 it will be very different. And
are we going Carnation Revolution or anything like that?
I do have an idea of having RevRep path, but the Carnation Revolution, it's too early for that kind of groundswell of support, because it's still at this time the liberal movements were led by the intellectuals rather than the people. Basically,
so it's more like technocratic than like populist.
Yeah, Portugal was very education was terrible. It was very poor. Most people weren't politically active at all, which is why, these massive conservative movements, they just kind of like, yeah, we'll keep it going and we'll make the country better, rather than, because there was obviously the first Portuguese Republic, which was a joke and had so many coups and so many government changes and everything, and the elections were also a joke. No one really cared about voting. So at this point, it's going to be probably more of a military-led thing than a groundswell of everyone rises up against the dictatorship. If you want a quick primer on the Portuguese law, there probably won't be any. I can't imagine there'll be anything else important. So you can stop recording in a second if you want. No. So basically, they started off integralists in 1936, and then there was a coup against the integralists, which brought in a more moderate monarchist government, and they've led ever since. And, yeah.
Cool. All right, so we are going to lose the recording here. So if you are listening to the recording, this is going to go on for a bit. I think at least as long as the
I can start recording.
All right, so we got to do it.
Yeah, let's go. 2 parts.
He's at his PC now.
Kind of helps. Recording ends mid-sentence, we're revealing something really important.
I mean,
Yeah, I just wanted to fucking leak
Hold on.
in game.
All right, so leak everything now before Duo starts recording.
There's a question in the chat I want to answer. Let's go. 2 parts.
He's at his PC
It
now.
kind of helps. Recording ends mid-sentence, we're revealing something really important.
I mean,
Yeah,
make sure
I
I got
just
it set
wanted to
up here.
fucking
Hold
leak,
on.
like,
Hold on.
In game.
All right, so leak everything now before Duo
Alright,
starts recording.
there's a question in the chat I want to answer.
May I say one thing? May I say one thing else now?
Go ahead, Hellbat. Yeah.
The social conservatives, I forgot to tell, they are not either pro-Germany or pro-Accord. They plan to balance the influence of both.
They take money from both.
Yeah, they take money from both, basically.
If you guys stick around, we were going to have a substantial Canada discussion, which I'm sure Laurie will love. We've got a bunch of...
I know, I see it from East Side Story 11. I would see it.
Yeah, so...
Is Canada's foreign policy pass the same as shown in PR?
Let's wait till Duo is recording here.
Oh, I mean, I could just start.
Well, but we want people to...
But it'd be funnier.
I already leaked my secret shit, so...
Anyone got a copy of the PNG so I can have like a background for it? Doesn't matter. Alright.
I don't know. Do you have of the logo?
Yeah, we're recording now.
Oh, cool.
Okay. So the question is,
East Side Story 11 is Canada's.
Is the flag debate in Canada part of whether Canada will be a republic or dominion?
No.
It is not. Flag debate is simply about the flag. It's a step towards republicanism, but keep in mind it's unless it's not going to be fast unless even under the Commonwealth Party. It's not the party. It's the CFF Party, which is basically the NDP before. I do not remember this. I have
Cooperative Commonwealth Federation.
Okay, Cooperative Commonwealth Federation Party. CCF, and they're pretty rarely to get elected. Otherwise, republicanism is going to be a fairly slow burn. So on the rest, will Canada adopt a more non-Commonwealth approach? That's kind of under the accordist ideal, which will kind of grow as the game starts. Most political parties are content with dealing with the Commonwealth, but no, with Portugal, France, eventually, like other American states, accordist influence will grow. But well, you can't just rely on what was the former British Empire for. They push for British reconquest goals? No, of course not. We're not a British puppet. Even if they remain a dominion, they have their own anatomy.
So,
autonomy.
Just in that line, this is something that we've discussed. So as you guys know, we have that Prime Minister UI, so that a lot of countries just have a head of state that they'll have for the whole game, but we kind of want to show more portraits, and so we have that UI that pops out that'll show that the full head of state style portrait for the head of government. And so there was a big question about whether Canada's main portrait should be the Governor General or whether it should be the Prime Minister. And so Canada is the only exception to the rule where we are putting what is technically the head of government in the head of state slot, because we want to show that Canada is ruled by its own government. It is not being dictated to by Britain, and we didn't want there to be any mistake about that.
Isn't the same for all Commonwealth nations? Canada is the only one that explicitly.
No, Australia uses the Governor General.
Yeah, I know. What I'm trying to say is,
the logic
like the actual the countries being autonomous for the most part, that is true for all Commonwealth nations. It's just Canada's the only one with the Prime Minister as the head of government.
I mean, not like the Governor General position is actually occupied in this present.
It
is not occupied. Sorry. Judex, are you able to talk more clearly now? Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Do you want to? We've had some questions about the ideological conflict and the Accord foreign policy. Are you able to talk about that a little bit, since you wrote foreign policy proposals?
Yeah. What are the questions, or is it just sort of like
just do a general overview?
So the Accord is NATO, except if NATO was didn't really have a single leading power like it does with the U.S. And it's also going to be much more cooperative than NATO is, just because the nature of the quote unquote threat that it's facing is just so much more powerful, and to counter it effectively, they need to work together. So there'll be obviously there'll be very close military integration, which you can. Oh, I think I've. No, I'm talking. What the fuck? There'll be very close military integration, even more so than you see with NATO. But there's also going to be economic and diplomatic cooperation, just because in order to effectively counterbalance this single power Germany with Germany's sphere, they need to work together much more closely than there really is any precedent for historically, or at least recently historically.
And if I can actually, if you guys don't mind me elaborating a bit more on the ideological conflict, I totally didn't pull this out of my ass the past 5 minutes. Anyways, so generally, the kind of theme is sort of not necessarily like communism versus capitalism. That's a very stark ideological conflict. It's more I suppose liberal democracy versus 19th century authoritarian imperialism, if that makes any sense. It's sort of
it's not sort of communism versus capitalism. It's a more authoritarian view versus a more sort of classical. Well, I don't want to say classical, but more sort of liberal humanist view of things. Both sides have more or less free markets, You know, they're probably
Wouldn't Germany's be kind of controlled though?
well, you know, I mean, it's not neither side is operating on a planned economy.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
You know, and you know, like Germany's is probably a little bit more heavily regulated than the Accords markets are.
More on like 19th century ideas of tariffs and shit.
Yeah, sure. You know, but it's there. You know, there's the underlying conflict is not economic. It's ideological. Whereas the Cold War's conflict was it certainly was ideological, but there was a significant economic component to it as well.
Awesome. And then let's see. Any others that I missed in the? Oh, will any of the Middle Africa breakaway states have content?
Maybe Brad, maybe Katanga.
The answer is maybe.
Yeah.
Eventually is the answer. We'll never not give them
We'll
content.
probably have a hot fix for all the breakaway states, but keep in mind a lot of the breakaway states are like 60s-ish, right, Brad?
Yeah, that's as I was going to say, because that ties into a question I saw earlier about when German Middle Africa will collapse. In that it's a slow burn throughout the 50s, and at the end of the day, Middle Africa is going to have full content for first release, which is from 1948 till about the 60s, which is a full 12 years. So the question is, maybe, probably not. There will probably be like skeletons for events and stuff in to give some flavour to the region. But broadly, once things have exploded, you've done your job for now.
We could probably add context and content in hot fixes, but it won't be like full on content.
Yeah, there'll probably be some natural spirits. There'll be leaders. You'll get some flavour of what the
maybe
brain.
one will be playable depending if I'm allowed to just pick up one.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, it depends how much time we have. Like, it depends on the how scheduling works out, basically. So, hopefully, fingers crossed is my answer.
Is Middle Africa guaranteed to collapse, or can it be prevented?
It can't be prevented. No.
Right, weren't you gonna like make like the super hard path where if you're really good and you'll get a fair?
No,
Oh yeah, it's always
talking.
it's always collapsed. It's always collapsed. It's always collapsed.
Centralized administration of Middle Africa will always.
Yeah, but I was thinking wrong.
And that can happen early. It can happen later. It's mostly a coding thing. Like it's like avoiding the Second American Civil War in Kaiserreich. Like it just code wise for future content, it just makes it so much harder. You have to do twice as much content, and balancing it is obscene. So the answer is no.
Also, why would you want to keep it together? Because it was interesting.
Shame on you.
Blowing the damn thing up.
It will always dissolve. Whether it collapses into a utter fuckfest or a lesser fuckfest is up to the player.
It depends on if Germany gets a favorable outcome or not, and that's going to be difficult.
There is 3 planned collapses of Middle Africa. The main ones.
What is?
Those ones you'll see every game. I mean, there's
You want to leak them, or you want to save that for the actual PR?
Technically, there's 5 outcomes for Middle Africa. I can tell you that about 3 of them, but I'm not going to for now. We'll save that for a future day.
Like a PR or something like that.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows?
I will say,
Who knows?
one of our best coders, Maho, did a fantastic, made this really, really cool mechanic system thing for Africa, which I really can't wait to show you guys. It's absolutely incredible.
Okay, like I'm going to say this now. Middle Africa might be this mod's current magnum opus. It is very good. It is very awesome.
Oh
yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Well, it could be. It could be if Brett did some more.
Right off my ass, yeah.
Hey, Brett. Hey.
You flatter me, and then you punch me in the face.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works.
If you can't tell, we're all a little bit busy with finals and wrapping up uni and things like that. So
many things to do. A lot of you guys asked about progress and motivation, and so we made some really, really good progress from like when we started releasing PRs in like I think August was the first one we did in a while, which was Germany. We made a lot of progress from August through like February, and then the semester really dragged us down, and so things have been a little slow for the last month or two. But we've we hope that once the semester ends for most people within the next couple of weeks, things will really pick up again, and we'll get moving.
They'll pick up again. This happens
over.
every single year.
I've still got another month and a bit of uni.
British.
If anyone's ever been involved in any project, if anyone's ever been involved in any project, they know this happens every single year. Midterms and finals always kills the productivity just because everyone is busy.
Productivity comes in waves. Motivation tends to build up.
Yeah, we also motivate each other.
3 a.m. Why?
We also
Some
motivate
of us
each
are
other.
working on other things for other mods too. So.
And then there's also the kind of the community as well. Like there's been, I think it's fair to say there's been quite a lot of drama.
Yeah, well, I would say the biggest thing has definitely just been uni.
Massive drag on.
Yeah, I would say motivation being killed is a combination of drama and uni.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's right. All right, we got a bunch of questions about Northern Ireland, Carmaine, which Zim assures me that you are.
I have been told to answer questions on Northern Ireland. Okay, give me the question.
What is going on in Northern Ireland? Because the flag, there's a lot of questions about the flag of Britain and things like that.
Right,
Can you
so
talk
the
about
flag
what's
of
going on
Britain.
there?
Okay, so just to quickly go up touch on the flag of Britain, I have changed it back to the current flag with the
Union Jack,
the Ulster Cross on the Union Jack. However, if and when Britain drops its claims on Northern Ireland, it will revert to the flag without the Ulster Cross. So just be without a diagonal red cross on it. Northern Ireland is controlled by Ireland as basically to help get Irish support for the so they could actually liberate it kind of thing. Sinn Féin government basically said, yeah, we'll work with you, but you need to uphold the fact that we control the entire island. And because they need the Accord needed, the Entente needed all the help they can get, they're like, okay, fine, whatever. It's not actually answered yet, though. Britain still technically claims Ulster. And though most of the sane politicians think, well, we can push this claim, but really, as long as the people as long as the Ulster Scots' rights are protected, it will probably only cause more division. Now, there are some old angry Tories, basically reactionaries, who think, no, Northern Ireland is core British territory. Actually, probably Ireland is core British territory, for being blunt.
Okay, Cromwell.
Yeah, pretty much. But by and large, the Liberals and the Socialists in Britain don't want to annex or re-annex Ulster, and the Conservatives themselves are kind of divided on the issue, which basically means that after the first general election, there's negotiations held between the Irish and British governments, which can result in a few different things for Ulster, one of them being, well, if Ireland can somehow make it so Ulster is just another normal part of Ireland, then well done. Or it can go all the other way, where Ulster has massive amount of autonomy, their own local government, that kind of thing. But there will not be a Troubles in this timeline, because the Troubles were by and large caused by Britain being incendiary towards the Irish population of Northern Ireland, and then it was already massively gerrymandered and sectarian anyway, but it just flames were stoked for decades and decades, and by 1960s, when army was sent into Northern Ireland, that just kind of caused it all to devolve into a massive amount of terrorism. The Troubles won't happen here, so that's nice. I think there'll still, it won't be like all sunshine and rainbows. There'll still be disagreements with the Ulster Scot population in Ulster, but there's not going to be nearly as many car bombs.
There's also a question of I can't pronounce this party, and I'm not going to try. I think it's the Sockcons. I don't know if you can pronounce that.
Where's the question?
It's the third most recent. It's the.
God.
The
natpops. What if the natpops get into power in Ireland? Well, the natpops
Zim giving you an answer to this.
No, I know the answer. So the natpops are Savinkovists. So they are not, but applied to Ireland in some weird fucking wacky way. They're chiefly they are isolationist. They don't want to be in either alliance. They want to island for the Irish. They're not like they're Catholic, but they're not particularly going to try and root out Protestantism. So they're not going to promote Protestantism, obviously. They're going to promote Catholicism as much as they can, but they're not trying to. They're not trying to they're just trying to slowly push it out of Ireland over time. Now, in real life, the real party had some really, really, really wacky ideas. But by the fact of actually having to run a country means they can't actually implement all these really, really wacky ideas. Because, sure, you can at a conference you can spout off about how you want to promote Irish sport and only Irish sport and want to ban football. But in reality, you can't really go ahead. You have to moderate. Even natpops have to moderate something. But that said, they are still the blatant fascists. Like, they're not nice people. But they can be a path for Ireland, and they won't cause too much in the way of division. That's probably where your kind of car bombs will come back into it. But that's for the 60s, really. The trouble
you just attracted every single modern day IRA supporter.
Yeah, no, because it'd be probably Ulster Scots doing setting off car bombs rather than the IRA.
Yeah,
the IRA doesn't exactly exist because
they're in power. They're the government.
Well, they were the government anyway, but
the only IRA that Ireland knows right now is the actual literal Republic Army.
Yeah, any actual trouble kind of thing won't happen until the 60s, like in real life, because it'll take that long for the resentment to bubble up. But it won't usually bubble up like that.
And no, Canada is not going to intervene because for the glory of the British Empire, if anyone's wondering, because there's a few people, I'm sure of it.
Let's talk about East Asia, which is not talked about. So we got a question: Will Australasia be able to reclaim Hong Kong or Singapore? No.
No.
No.
What will the Accord be able to repair the relationship with India? Yes.
Kind of. Moderate. India will accept Accord money, basically. That's about it.
Yeah, they're not.
There is a lot of bad blood between India and Germany, because Germany still has blatant imperialist ambitions in Southeast Asia and that kind of thing. Even though they were kicked out of Indochina, they
can't do anything. It's just
worm their way into little bits here and there. And then they have bad blood with the Accord because they just bitch slap Britain out of India. Like, it wasn't a peaceful, mostly peaceful partition, everything like it was. In our timeline, it was a violent decolonisation, which has mostly ended by now. There are still some kind of princely states in the south of India that Germany are kind of trying to prop up a bit, try and balance.
Wait, they're actually not. They're just German involvement in India at this point is mostly a white elephant, precisely because the GEA is dead, so that the utility is mostly diminished. So they're just waiting for big India to come knocking and okay, we'll sign a cheap shit. We'll just sign it off and get the fuck out of here.
Anyway,
but that's when they ask. If they don't ask, then there's gonna be some problem.
Are there any other East Asia questions?
Probably something to do with Japan.
There are a lot about Japan, and Japan's the world stage.
Right, I will say this quickly about Japan. We have the same problem that most other mods have.
Japan is hard, okay?
Barely any of us understand Japan to a real
degree. Japan
and the ones who do aren't the ones who do are only briefly here. So we have ideas for Japan, but Japan probably won't have content because it's a bitch to try and figure out.
Japan is basically a shit show, to say the very least.
Especially Japan, as different as, because obviously the Japan that we know was burnt to the ground and rebuilt by the Americans from the ground up.
Let's also be a little bit clear when we say they won't have content, meaning initial release. They will
in 0.1. They will obviously
absolutely get content as soon as humanly possible.
But we don't.
Didn't the Japanese lose against the Chinese or what?
They did.
Yeah. So the basic Japanese law is Japan's navy does very well against the Germans because the Germans are divided fucking everywhere. But so the navy does well, and they are able to quote unquote liberate. You know, it's Japan, but they managed to clear out the Germans from Indochina because they were already facing massive rebellions in Indochina anyway. They were able to secure hegemony in East Indies because America isn't there to stop them. In our time, and obviously, the American Navy was what really stopped Japan from being able to take the Dutch East India, from being able to take Papua New Guinea, all that kind of land. But here, because there's the only big navy in the region, really, because the British navies kind of, but they're more focused in the Atlantic. The only big navies is the German navy. They're gone. However, just because the navy and some areas of the army can mop up in all these little areas doesn't mean they can beat China. A China that is has to be said. I'm not sure. I think
it's like a cockroach. It's like a cockroach. Like they try to kill it, but it won't die.
I think
that should be noticed. It should also be noticed. Yeah, especially South China has kind of the best of both worlds from both of sides of the Civil War OTL. Like, it has the kind of popular mass support that the communists had with, like, the actual kind of institutional and foreign support that the nationalists had. So that's why, like, the South is primed. That's why the South did so well, and the North has that. I don't really know the lore for Fengshan. I don't know if anyone.
I think it's basically like it's got a good military structure. That's all I know. That's all I feel like I know.
Fengshan, I believe, allied with the southern government a bit to defend against the Japanese.
Yeah. The United Front is the thing.
Anyway, so in China, basically, Qing got fucked. League of Eight provinces got fucked by multiple people, but mainly the KMT. But the KMT themselves were not strong enough to unify everywhere, because basically the KMT were able to unify what was the League of Eight provinces. However, the Federalists managed to form their own government in, I think it was
Guangzhou,
I believe.
Guangxi. Then Qing were fucked by literally on every side. Everyone invaded Qing. But then, Japan Fentiang used to be Japan's essentially vassal state. They didn't actually want to be Japan's vassal state. So what does Japan try and do after what's his name? Zhang Shaolin tries to assert his dominance? Is they try and kill Zhang Shaolin, which fails, and then he goes into open rebellion against the Japanese. So the first big problem Japan faces in the war is they are weaker than they were in real life. They don't have the same kind of concerted industrial push that they did, because they haven't been under these weird military governments for as long. The second problem they have is the front lines start much further back. In real life, they already had all of Manchuria and a lot of Mongolia. Here, they have none of Manchuria because the army they had in Manchuria got fucked by China going, fuck off, and was betraying them. Which meant they had to clear out Manchuria as well as do all the other pushes. Then, their major offensives also failed, but worse than they did OTL. So Operation Ichigo, which in real life was their attempt to try and break the southern resistance, backfired tremendously, and they were eventually then pushed to Guangzhou and Nanjing. And after they started, after the war was clearly untenable, they went to the negotiation table and were humiliated.
Not to mention,
and that humiliation is a massive thing in Japan at Game Start, because they shouldn't have lost the war. How did they lose the war? Everything was going to be so easy, and then they just couldn't, and they got crap.
Another factor that contributed.
What was that, Kag?
There's actually, well, technically speaking, Japan is not at peace with Germany, which is another concern in the back of the mind. Like, oh no, we're losing in China. Let's get the f out before Germany comes back at us.
Yeah, that's the Japan Germany thing is they're not technically, but they're not really at war. They're just it's some kind of no one can really
It's
do
just
anything.
a staring contest.
Germany doesn't want to sign a formal peace treaty with Japan, and Japan don't want to sign another peace treaty after they just had to, formally pull out of China. So it's like both kind of like they're looking at each other across the world, but they can't do anything to each other.
To be clear about the Chinese thing, it was not an absolute, we're kind of making it seem like Japan got absolutely bodied. No, China definitely got the work of that war.
So it took 8 years.
8-year war of resistance.
8 years of blood, but Japan basically. In real life, Japan. What was that?
8 years of blood and treasure and nothing to show for it.
Yeah, that's.
All right. I think we may wrap up. Do you guys have anything else you'd like to say? I have one other question.
I do have something.
Go ahead, Alonch.
There was this question that was about how did Chile get rid of the syndicalist government? Chile, and it was they kind of did like they didn't. There's no syndicalists in the government, and basically it's Chile before the. Was it a revolution? I don't remember. I think it was a revolution, but basically, the government didn't know that. The government didn't know that having a bunch of generals from the old regime wasn't a good idea, because basically every single general, like Blanche, and that's actually the leader on the teaser we posted. It was a general before and wasn't actually a syndicalist. Most of the government wasn't. There was one general that was a socialist. It was Puga, and basically he got exiled to Mexico, I guess. Well, basically there is a resistance in like there's not. Come on, you know English. Basically, there's this resistance group that's basically a united front between everyone who hates the military, liberals, syndicalists, democratic socialists, and a bit of. There was one other group that I won't talk right now, and well, basically, there's this. They didn't get rid of the syndicalists, and you know what? I'm going to lick it right now. Well, not lick it, but Allende is not the actual leader of this movement. It's actually a retired Air Force general that called Arturo Merino, who was a big supporter of Allende, and basically right now is basically not a hardcore socialist, but it's still pretty like he isn't a complete he's not a social democrat. He's actually more of a radical democratic socialist or something. It's basic, but yeah, he doesn't. The syndicalists won't get actually destroyed or something. They're still there and still have a lot of supporters.
Cool.
I know English. Yeah.
All right, Carmen, what you wanted to talk about Britain
Right.
and
So,
Germany real fast?
everyone found some questions about Germany and Britain. I'll answer them, and then we will aim to wrap this up on the hour. So give us about just a bit under 10 minutes. To answer some questions on Britain and Germany. So give me questions. I thought the new Wilhelm IV. Has the new Wilhelm IV not been?
Yes.
Leaked?
Well, it's in the emote, dude.
Yeah, but the actual portrait.
If you guys want to take a look at our leaks, you can look at the emotes.
Right, have we got?
All right, yeah, there's the Wilhelm IV.
There's my Wilhelm.
You guys get a leak.
Manos Wilhelm IV. It was very, very. For God's sake. Okay, I'll scroll back to find some questions. So, can Germany be a democracy? Depends on your definition of democracy, my friend. Technically, yes. You can reinstate the Prussian constitutional system, which is a democracy. It's not a free democracy. It's not a very liberal democracy, but you can still vote. And you
very much embodies.
Well, to be honest, they can vote in every single path, but it doesn't matter whether the vote actually matters.
Yeah, even path, there are still votes. It's just you're voting for a list of candidates.
Yeah, Carmaine, I actually, so my concentration is in Northern European history, which includes Imperial Germany, and I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding of what Imperial Germany's government form was, because it was simultaneously quite reactionary and yet quite progressive. Prior to World War I, Germany was the only country in the world that had universal manhood suffrage.
Horseshoe theory.
Stop.
All right. It was the only country in the world that had universal manhood suffrage. Nowhere else in the world could all men above 25 vote, regardless of class, regardless of race or anything like that. So
that's Bismarck for you.
Well, and that's the thing. They had some quite advanced social programs. So they had a lot of democratic institutions, but the three-class voting system for the Bundesrat, or for the state legislature, which controlled the Bundesrat, was quite restraining. And at the end of the day, they were reactionary because the Reichstag, which was what the universal voting was for, didn't really control much. They controlled the budget, but that was about it. No ministers were underneath them. The military was not controlled by the Reichstag. They did not have a civilian-controlled military. And so, despite having a lot of these democratic institutions, they weren't used for democratic means. And that is still around in Kalterkrieg Germany. There is still universal manhood suffrage for the Reichstag, but the Reichstag just does not do very much.
Right, that's a lot about the Reichstag. Right, so UK, how are the Liberals doing? Are they going to dissolve into irrelevance or kingmaker status, or can they become a permanent fixture? And are they sort of liberal? So the Liberals are predominantly social liberals. They are the British New Liberals. So that's the kind of tradition of David Lloyd George. And
honestly, I mean, you could compare them to Canadian Liberals.
Yeah, but anyway. So Liberals in Britain, it's a weird thing, because by this time in real life, the Liberal Party had essentially died. Here, they have a lease of life for two reasons. The first lease of life is the fact that they were, for most of their existence in the Union of Britain, organised. The Tories were basically completely collapsed. But the Liberals, until Mosley took power, they were still organised in the Union of Britain. So they have more relevant and recent experience and more kind of groundwork, which the Tories have to relay completely. And the second lease of life they have is Herbert Samuel was, for many years, a prominent political prisoner of the Union of Britain. So he has the kind of almost Mandela effect of he's now free. He's fought for these rights and everything, and now he can go and put them in. Obviously, he's a very old man. He will only serve until 55 when he will retire. That is when the Liberals will have a massive identity crisis. So the Liberals can win in 1950. However, if they don't win in 1950, they can't win after that. And if they do win in 1950, it will be difficult for them to win after that, because they have to figure out what is the Liberal Party. What is British liberalism in the 1950s? Will there be a space race between Germany and GB? There will be a space race between Germany and the Accord as a kind of collective, really in the 1960s. Was first past the post reintroduced, and can it be changed? First past the post is reintroduced in Britain, and it's not going to be changed for one reason of it will make figuring out political paths nigh on impossible. Because I don't know how British politics would have evolved if it hadn't had first past the post. I would have to essentially have to have two different ways of figuring out paths and double the content, and I can't be asked with that.
Oh, you have no imagination.
Yes, exactly.
Exactly. Problem is that Carmaine is a smooth brain.
What's that?
It's a joke. It's a joke.
No, I know. What else have I got that I can answer here? If I scroll up. Oh yeah, there was someone. Oh yeah, so if it is guaranteed, can Germany still set up a sphere of influence in Africa with breakaway states? Yes. Just because Middle Africa dies doesn't mean German influence in Africa dies with it.
But there's no like Rhodesia state. I'm just gonna say that now.
Yeah, there is. Okay, there are settlers in there, but it's not going to be one pure settler state. Because
I'm not talking about West Africa.
even if it
Brad can
makes-
talk about it if he wants.
even if it does fit to some degree, the problem is it's another case of your content is Lamau racism.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, we could, but it's not that it's not. It's just generic. Oh yeah, Rhodesia, Lamau. It's Rhodesia itself was actually a very kind of unique situation. The settler population was massive compared to most places in Africa, so they actually had a potential to have a sustainable government. Germany doesn't actually have that many settlers in Africa, so they don't have the kind of base to set up these kind of governments. But anyway, yeah, your gameplay in Middle Africa is predominantly trying to make the best out of it once it's already gone. So your job is, as a Statthalter, is to keep German influence high, cut losses where you can, but try and hold on to as much as you can. Eventually,
it's the same feeling as watching something catch a flame. You know, that satisfying watching it turn to ash.
Or
That's
train wreck.
Yeah, in slow motion.
Yeah,
It's like listening to Adele's whatever, some Adele song and watching the whole thing for it.
It's like looking at the state of Paradox Interactive.
For people
Overextended, bloated, and struggling to succeed.
For those like totally not growing like year on year super fast. No, totally, we're a struggling company.
So, for those who might be curious about what a quote-unquote German good ending would be, think about how a lot of North Africa comes under massive French influence. Even to this day, think about that.
I mean, it also would be like all of French Africa in general.
I don't think a lot of people would call that a good ending, but
No, I
It's
mean,
a
yeah,
good
you're right.
ending for Germany.
from the perspective
If you're playing as Germany, what is the best case scenario for the Germans?
yes.
I will leave it at there is a big bracket marks win state.
there is
as
a
an
big brain
Africa.
path that can
There
happen.
is a win state in quotation marks. Like we're not going to say anything else about it, not
We're not
tonight.
going to say the name, even though I so desperately want to. But
Coward, do it.
That's where we'll end
no.
it.
But
I
yeah, there
gotta
is
step out because I'm supposed to be done at 5. So if
Yeah.
you guys have any more
Let's
questions,
wrap up here. I know you guys all want to know a release date. We will be honest with you. We don't know when release is. We are taking this as it comes. We don't have a planned release date. We had some goals for late this year, but I don't think that's going to be hit. So don't get
Thank
your
you,
hopes
Drum
up.
in school.
we kind of been pushed back a couple of months.
Yeah, so if you guys ask for a release date and you think we're holding something back, we really just don't know when release is coming. But we promise you, we are working as hard as we can. And otherwise, thanks so much for tuning in. We will post the recording soon if you guys missed part. If you have any other questions, Ask a Dev will be open as usual. We are going to archive that Q&A questions channel, but Ask a Dev will always be open for questions. But thanks so much for coming.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Penis.
Penis and
all right, I'm